Oh, it just gets worse and worse and worse for Lucasfilm and Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I mean, look, I don't think anyone actually expected this film to be good. And I think this is unfortunate because I'd heard good things about it from people that had worked on it. But this is the thing, right? There's a somewhat vested interest there. They'd worked on it. It is what it is. But it's been obliterated by critics. I mean, it's back up to 49%. When there was 22 critics, it was down into like the 30s. And now there's 37 critic reviews. It's still rotten, but it's at 49%. And loads of people go, well, 49% is not bad. I can assure you it is. They spent well over $300 million on this movie, about 350. 49% is not what they want. They want a very, 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 very good score because they need to earn Avatar money to make their money back. So, not good by any stretch of the imagination. So let's take a look at this. They really front-loaded this to make it appear as good as possible. I mean, premiering at Cannes, for instance. That, in and unto itself, you know, it was a push to inspire confidence from the general public as well as critics. It bombed. Apparently, it was a really lackluster response as well. So, not good. Not good. And we are only over a month before it releases into theatres. So, not a good sign. So, like I said, you know, it just seems to be going down and down and down and down and down. I mean, look, so 22 critics, 36%. Not good. Obviously, you know, we're at 35, 37 now. Doesn't seem to be changing, so that's always a bit sus. And why is it always suspect? Well, because Rotten Tomatoes has, you know, Disney has a part share in like a parent company or something along those lines. And Rotten Tomatoes is well known for shifting stuff for Disney. They are... Captain Marvel's literally the reason they changed their reviewing system, believe it or not. So I would imagine they're going to do something very similar with this as well. So anyway, on Rotten Tomatoes, the film was a rotten 49% on the tomato meter with an average rating of 5.8 out of 10 from 35 reviews. And there are 17 fresh and 18 rotten. So looking at the top critic score, the film fares even worse with a 36% rating with an average review of 5.4 out of 10 from 22 reviews. And there are 8 fresh and 14 rotten. So not good. So here's just like a general oversight of what people are saying so you can get to grips with the negative elements of this film. So fun isn't the most accurate way to describe its excessive antics. There's never a dull moment, but all the globe-trotting hullabaloo does verge on exhausting. It's from Stephen Garrett at The Observer. We've got James Mottram at the South Morning China Post gives the film a positive 4 out of 5. Yeah, you thought this was just going to be negative, didn't you? Yeah, wee rascals. I'm here to give you some positive stuff. So he said, director James Mangold stepping in for Steven Spielberg brings the character's adventures to a satisfying close while Ford revels in reprising the role for one last hurrah. Ultimately, people will be going to watch Harrison Ford and his one last hurrah. That is the only reason people will be watching. If it is less than satisfactory, people are going to be pissed. They'll be really pissed. I can't wait to see what the audience thinks. Because it could be one of those things, right? It could be one of those things where the audience and the critics are highly split. But I don't think so, because the critics themselves are split. I think this will be one of those situations where the audience genuinely doesn't respond to this movie. You've only got to compare it to the last movie, for instance. So anyway, Peter Howell at the Toronto Star was rotten. Said 2.5 out of 4. Says it's all pretty goofy and laborious over its 142-minute runtime. I mean, this is the thing. It's a really long movie. I mean, it's 2 hours and 24 minutes. 2 hours and 24 minutes. You've got to earn a runtime like that. It has to be exceptionally good to have a 2.5 hour runtime. God, man alive. Like, I like long movies, don't get me wrong, but you have to earn that type of runtime. So Robert Doherty at Flix gives the film a rotten review. He writes, a film that inherits the directing mantle from Steven Spielberg should know when to step up. It's about time executives realise that franchises can't be cleanly separated from the visions and talents of those who made them. Donald Clark at Irish Times, positive one, says it counts as a sort of compliment to saying that James Mangold film, until a gleefully absurd ending, plays like just another episode in a creaky, unpretentious romp. Is that a compliment? How interesting. James Gorber at the Shelf, another positive. He says, fine fan fiction, employing much of what makes this character so special, play out in new ways, while very much embracing the past. When it works, it's excellent. When it doesn't, you still revel in companionship of old friends. So, nostalgia, you know? Again, another positive one from Ben Rolfe. It says, Harrison Ford finds a fitting end to one of the cinema's greatest action heroes and one of the most iconic roles of his career with this film. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is a thrilling, action-packed swan song for the iconic character. I personally prefer the one that he just rides off into the sunset. David Jenkins, Rotten Review, says, it's an improvement on the execrable Crystal Skull, but James Mangold's exhumation, of the Spielberg adventure serial is both tame and unnecessary. Nicholas Barber, Rotten, says the jokes, the zest, and the exuberance just aren't there. So, instead of a joyous send-off for our beloved hero, we get a depressing reminder of how much livelier his past adventures were. Brutal. Polygon gave it a rotten. Says it's a disappointing facsimile of the much better Indiana Jones films that preceded it. I guess this is rotten. 3 out of 5. Says what's vexing is the nagging feeling that there's a much better Indiana Jones film buried in there somewhere. And this honestly could be what my sources were referring to that worked on the film. Who knows? But it would require a feat of archaeology, or at least a rewrite of some judicious editing to excavate it. Fresh review here, so again, we are giving you some good ones, guys. A MacGuffin is meant to be just that, an object characters chase after in a story. What it is and what it does doesn't usually matter. Surprisingly, it does, and gives the movie its absolutely bonkers, jaw-dropping climax. The only climax I'm interested, generally speaking, would be... Anyway, moving on. So, on Metacritic, the film currently has a Metascore of 53 out of 22 reviews. So, lots of people get really annoyed when you talk about Rotten Tomatoes, but it's the same on Metacritic, guys. Same on Metacritic. So, Lex Briscuso from Slash Film says, all in all, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is an action-packed, high-octane super soaker of a film, while at the same time amounting to a beautiful final conquest and farewell to the world's most famous adventurer. John Nugent of Empire said, Indy's final date with Destiny has a balmy finale that might divide audiences, but if you join him for the ride, it feels like a fitting goodbye to cinema's favourite grave robber. He was never a grave robber, shut the fuck up. Steve Pond at The Wrap said, if this is the final Indiana Jones movie, as it most likely will be, it's nice to see that they stuck the landing. So lots of positive ones, but again, there's negatives as well. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny may be the least of the indie films, but it's still a worthy chapter that does more to expand than to stultify. Rory O'Connor said it often fizzes as much as it lulls, but in Mickelson's Dr. Schmidt, the film can at least boast a worthy antagonist and one with enough personality to cover some of those cracks. I was really interested in watching Mikkelsen in this. So there's this one. Oddly, the comedy of this partnership is dialed down, and the film's few wisecracks don't really land. It's adventure, though, that everyone really wants from an Indiana Jones film, and on that front it delivers. And then some, by prizing open the old box of tricks and performing them one by one with care and respect. Add to that the rousing familiarity of John Williams' score, and it all amounts to a comforting, if not especially challenging reboot. But then we've got some negatives, of course. So, there are so many chase sequences in Dial of Destiny that the movie seems held together with slender bits of plot, rather than the other way around. Worse yet, they're so heavily CGI'd that they come off as grimly dutiful, rather than thrilling or delightful. That remembrance of Saturday matinees past is there for a bit in Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny until it very much isn't. And you're largely left with what you imagine you'd get if you programmed a 21st century AI program to write up nostalgia bait for the children of the late 20th century. Brutal. At every turn, director James Mangold desperately wants to recapture the glory of old school Hollywood filmmaking, but turns painstakingly to the worn-out tools of present-day tentpole movie making. CGI, sound stages, shit like that. Hollywood Reporter were pretty brutal on this, actually. 40 they gave it. This is a big bombastic movie that goes through the motions but never finds much joy in the process, despite John Williams' hard-working score continuously pushing our nostalgia buttons and trying to convince us we're on a wild ride. Telegraph gave it a brutal one as well. It ultimately feels like a counterfeit of priceless treasure. The shape and the gleam of it might be superficially convincing for a bit, but the shabbier craftsmanship gets all the more glaring the longer you look. Screen Daily, again, they were pretty brutal. This iconic archaeologist has spent his life digging for the treasures of the past. Sadly, Dial of Destiny does the same thing, pillaging our collective fond memories of a once great franchise. And lots of people didn't like Phoebe Ball-Bag Waller-Bridge. So, yeah. Let me know your thoughts, though. Take care.